All right, so now we're going to keep moving through this development. So we looked at 1.2, we kind of set up the basics for 1.3. We'll fine tune that as we start going through the modules to make it a little bit more complete. Now we're going to look at this first section here for module 1. The first slide is basically just a trigger that goes to the next button. So we want to look at slide 2.2. Each slide's a little bit different. So if we actually look at the published version, let's look at the this is it here. So if we actually look at that particular slide, we've got oops, that's not it. We've got a couple things going on here. So if we preview this, one thing we notice is we've got these, we can click them, and you can see this progress meter as I go through, and I can collect trophies, and I click, and we're kind of showing the progress as you go through there. So we're showing we're collecting trophies, we're showing progress, and we're going through these sections here. So let's go ahead and close that preview. Let's look at our production file, and I always save it. I can see I haven't saved it in a while, so let's go ahead and save. That's always a good thing. So what we have here is, let's look at the buttons. These buttons here, they already have disabled state, so that's just creating a disabled state. And the idea of the disabled state is when it's disabled, you can't do anything. So I'm using that as a simple way to track progress. So I'm showing you, okay, you already clicked and you don't have access to that anymore. So for example, when you get to a layer, you're going to be able to select a trophy, but if you leave, you're not going to be able to come back, right? So that adds a little bit of, you made a mistake, you didn't collect everything you needed, now you can't come back, so you've got to work with what you have. So what we're going to do first here is we're going to see all the triggers are set up to show the layers, right? So there's all working. Let's preview this and see what's working, and then let's see what we have to fix. So we're going to click here. Nothing's working here. I'm going to close, and you can see nothing's working here. So let's go ahead and figure out how we want to do this. So the first thing is, we know they're working. So I need to determine, when do I want to set this to disabled. So I could set it to disabled when I click, or I could set it, let's see if I can set it disabled when I click the close. So if I click close, it's going to hide the layer, but can I set it to disabled? So let's see, can I change the state of, and I have access to what's on my slide, I can change the state of that 1 to disabled when the user clicks the button close. So if we come back here and I click on this and I click close, this is set to disabled. So that's one way to do it. The other way is I could come in here and I can say, change the state of that, what is that, 2 to disabled when user clicks. And it's going to work the same way. So if we preview this slide, this one changes to disabled when I click close. This one's going to jump to the layer. It changed it to disabled when I clicked on it. So it really depends on how you want to approach that. Now what I would do is, I like to keep everything together. So you know, this is one way, is you get a lot of triggers off the slide. So that's one consideration. If I put them on the layers, then those triggers aren't here. But I like to, it just depends. I'm going to remove this one here. I like to set the triggers so they're kind of grouped together. So if this one here is going to be set to disabled, I'm going to copy this, and I can actually, this is what's nice, is I'm going to select all the shapes here, and I can paste that on there, and now they're all, 1's disabled, 2's disabled, 3's disabled, and so forth. So that was a lot easier to work with. So now if I preview this, they're all going to work exactly the way I want them to work. Right, so they're all being disabled. Okay, so that part works. So now what we want to do is we come into here, and I need to get some information, and I can collect trophies. So I need to create a variable, and you can see that I have already built these with disabled states on them. So we're going to kind of do the same thing. When I click on it, it's going to be disabled, and that indicates that it's visited. Now the reason I made it disabled and not just click on it, because if you were to come back in here, you could click on it again and you'd get another trophy, but by disabling it, you don't have access to clicking on that again. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's just change the state of this to disabled when I click on it. So change the state of this, where is it at here? What's that called? Trophy, light blue, to disabled when user clicks on that trophy. And the other thing we want to do is we want to start collecting trophies. So I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to create a variable. We'll just call it trophy, and we'll make this a number variable. And right now it's set at 0. Hit OK. And so when I click on this, I want to set trophy variable to 1. We'll add 1 to it. So let's go ahead. What do I want to do? I want to adjust variable trophy, and I want to add the value of 1 when user clicks on the trophy. And then this should work, and we can test that here in a second. Now, I'd want to do the same thing on here. Now, to make this easy, I'm just going to select this because it's all going to be exactly the same, right? And I'm going to delete these so I don't have to do all those steps over. Now you can do the steps and you can change the color of the trophies, but we're just going to keep the trophies all the same because I'm kind of lazy. All right, so we're done because we copied and pasted those. Now if you want to change the colors, you can go in there and change the colors, but this all works fine for what we're doing. So let's go ahead. We should be adding values here, and we can test that. Let's go to our base slide. And how do we test those things? We just insert a text box and insert a slide reference. And we're going to see what trophy is as we start to click on it. So there's our trophy value. Just put it down here, and let's preview this slide. So we should have a few things happening. One is these get disabled, collect my trophy, close. So you can see this, click my trophy, close. So we got 2. I'm not going to take the trophy, so I still only have 2. Can't go back, so I missed that opportunity. And hit close, and you can see how that works. So we can see everything's working exactly the way we want that to work. Now the other thing is we need to figure out this progress meter. And so I just have a progress meter here that has different states. And what I can do is I got to figure out what I'm going to do, right? Because if you click on here, I want to show the first one. So I've got to have some sort of option to change the progress meters, right? So maybe I create a variable. Let me actually look at what we did on the other file so it doesn't confuse you when you look at those other files. So it looks like we have a meter progress variable, and we're just changing that and adding a number value. So that's what we'll do on this one as well. I'm just going to slide this out of the way. So let's go ahead and add another variable, and we'll just call this progress meter. So, and we'll just call it progress, and we'll say for 1, so in case there's another one somewhere else. So we're going to do number, and we can say the initial value is at 0. So what do we want to do? We just want to change this. So when we click on these, any one of these shapes, we're just going to add 1 to that progress meter value. So let's go ahead and create a trigger. What do I want to do? I want to adjust variable. Which variable? Progress meter 1. I want to add the value of 1 when user clicks on one of the hexagons, right? Hit OK. Now these again are the same. So I'm going to copy this. And let's see if I can paste it in here. So you can see I can come into those sections and paste them in there. And paste it. And the fifth one. Let's paste it. So if we look at it, we're going to show layer, change the state, and we're going to add one to progress meter. Now sometimes it may show the layer but not add because it may jump to the layer, so it may not add it. So let's see what happens. We need to add another reference. So let's go ahead and add a reference to progress meter. And what was the title of that? I can't remember. So go to reference, progress 1, hit OK. So that's something to keep in mind when you're working with these triggers, that they're going to have a different order. So what could happen is it's going to jump to layer 1 and may not trigger this. So it just depends. If it doesn't trigger, then you want it to trigger the progress first and then jump to the layer. So let's go ahead and see what happens. And we can see here's our trophy count, and we're going to click, and I can see that it is working, so we're good to go on there, right? So we can see that it's changing. I can only get to the value of 5 because these are all locked, so I can't keep clicking. And this is again why these references are really handy while you're working. So now we just need to change the state of this. So we're going to say change the state of progress meter. I think that's what we're looking at. Actually, let me just double check this. Let's go to the timeline. So we have the progress meter, and there's the base, and there's this. So the meter itself is, so there's a color under, and then a color on top. So we have, and we can't see that because if we look at the state, now we can see it, right? So there's a base, and then there's the meter. So this is the base, and the meter's hidden right now because it's normal, it's just nothing, and then it goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so let's go ahead and set our triggers now. We want to change the state of our progress meter progress to 1 when variable changes, and which variable? Progress 1, and what's the condition? So it's progress 1 is equal to the value of 1. And we hit OK, and we're going to go ahead and copy and paste this. Oops, let me click away here sometimes. All right, so let's go ahead and copy this, and for some reason it's not pasting for me. Okay, change this from 2 to 2, right? Paste it again, change this 3 to 3, paste it again, 4 to 4, and 5 to 5. Pretty cool. So we're going to change the state of the progress meter, and it should move, right? So let's go ahead and preview this slide. Click in. You can see the values changing, collecting trophies. We can see that happened here. Closing, it's disabled. So it looks like everything's working the way we want it to work. All right, so it's all working the way we want it to work. Now, when we played around with this earlier, we set the initial set module 1 complete equal to true when the timeline starts. But we may want to make it equal to true when this equals 5, or when this state of this is 5, or when the variable is equal to 5, or when these are all disabled. It really doesn't matter. We'll just say when the progress meter is equal to 5, mark it true. So let's go ahead and change this. So adjust variable module 1 complete. We're going to make it true, and we're going to make it true when variable changes, and which variable we're going to say progress 1 is equal to 5. So progress, variable progress 1 is equal to the value of 5. All right, so we should preview this here. Let's do one more reference. Let's make this our reference to module 1 complete to make sure it's being changed, right? So let's go ahead and insert a reference. Module 1 complete, hit OK. And if we preview this slide, here's our trophy count, here's our progress meter, and here's our module. So we're going to click through, click on a couple trophies. All right, so we should have 2 trophies. We'll just click through here so we can see the progress meters working. Click through, click here. Now this should change to true, which it did because it's changed to 5, and we can already see true poking through here. So now we know that's been changed, and that means when we get to this slide here, this should unlock module 2, because module 2 gets unlocked. Where is it at here? I thought we put a variable on here. Oh yeah, so change the state of button 2 here to normal, so it's disabled. We're going to change it to normal when that module 1 complete is equal to true. And so that's what we did right here. We set that equal to true, but only after this entire activity was complete. Again, it's pretty simple, but whether it's simple or complex, it's generally the same process. So understanding the foundational elements of work with the variables, and then knowing when you want to trigger changes in the variables, and then once you've triggered those changes, it's just how do I use those values. So in this case, we have 3 values, right? We have trophy values, we have progress meter values, and we have module complete values. Now we're going to use the trophy and some of those things in other modules, and then we'll report that when we get to those tutorials. Okay, so that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.